Welcome back to the channel. This is the Action Figure Grader, and we're going to look at some more recent sales on eBay for vintage Star Wars action figures to give you guys an idea of where prices are. This is a mixed lot. We've got some mint on cards, some open play sets, vehicles, some loose complete figures, size from. That's always a very tough one to track down. And in general, just some pretty decent prices out there for a lot of items, some last 17, things like that. Thanks as always to my Patreon supporters. You guys motivate me to make these videos and provide you guys some price data so you can make informed decisions with your discretionary income so you don't overpay. All right, that's basically what I try to do for you guys. Let's take a closer look, and we're going to start off with what I thought was a really good deal. It was a seller that only had 3 feedback. But they had this 12-back Darth Vader. You can see that the blister is starting to maybe peel away a little bit at the top. So it's called bubble lift for those of you that like to speak in collector nerd parlance. But it looks like that blister's starting to pull away just a little bit from this 12-back. But overall, pretty decent shape. Light edge wear, but a pretty clean example overall. And it was listed for $600. That feels like a pretty good deal. That feels like a really good deal for a pretty nice looking Darth Vader 12-back. Fred Meyer sticker. How awesome is that? Upper left-hand corner. So I thought that was a pretty good deal, though. This was another really good deal. This was a seller that's kind of new to eBay, and one of y'all told me that they're really active on Facebook, and they started listing on eBay as well. And you can see, obviously, in the first photo, follow us on Facebook for more info, and probably the prices may be cheaper. I don't know, but they had 0 feedback for the longest time, and then one of y'all said, no, it's a legit seller. I bought from them before, and now they've got 12 feedback with 100% positive. So this is a seller to keep an eye on because they've got some really good prices even on eBay. This was an AFA 80 20-back G Greedo graded, 80, 80, 85. Very, very clean example, unpunched. And it was listed for $950, which you can make an argument that's a really good deal. That's a really good deal. And it sold in a make an offer situation for $900. And really any early Greedo is pretty pricey. An 80 grade near mint, unpunched, no price sticker for $900. I mean, you tell me, but that to me feels like a really, really good deal on a early 20-back Greedo. So that's a seller to keep an eye on and maybe check them out on Facebook. I have not done so yet, but several of you have commented that this is a seller that is worth following on eBay as well as Facebook. Next up, I was pleasantly surprised to see Chris Whitlock over at Collector Archive Services. He's one of the co-owners and a friend of mine. He posted, I know he bought it on eBay because I have it featured in another video that I've already made, but I haven't released yet. But it was a vintage R2-D2. I think it was a sensor scope R2-D2 Return of the Jedi mock signed by Kenny Baker. And it was qualified 60 grade from AFA, but it did include the James Spence authentication. And I remember when I made the video, because I just made it yesterday, and I said, hey, you guys might want to send these types of items in to Collector Archive Services instead of AFA. Again, that R2 that he bought was an AFA qualified grade because AFA does not really offer any authentication services for signatures on cards. Collector Archive and UKG do offer that. And so he bought it, and he said, he's put it, in a Facebook post, he said, I'm really starting to get into vintage Star Wars or any kind of Star Wars items signed by actors or voice actors or whatever. So I was pleasantly surprised to see that because I'm kind of obsessed with that right now too. I'm not going to lie. I mean, if you guys watch my videos, my what to buy videos, I've been showing a lot of signature series comic books and things like that. While I have not bought any recently, I'm certainly very tempted. Daniel over at One Stop Comic Shop sent me a couple of beautiful signature series books as a gift. And it's really gotten me, it's gotten the collecting bug going for me. And I've held off so far, but Anyway, I just thought it was interesting that he said that because I feel the same way as Chris about it. And then lo and behold, this one just sold as well. I don't know if Chris bought this or not. It was pretty expensive, but it was a pretty beautiful 21 back B Chewbacca graded UKG 80%. And you can see there UKG mentions on the label signed by Peter Mayhew. AFA does not do that. Collector Archive Services does that. You can send in a sealed item like this that has a signature, and you pay for the James Spence authentication, and then they'll also grade the actual item. And it gives a really pretty signature series label from CAS, and it mentions who it's, signed by on the label. So that's, if you're in the UK, obviously you can use UKG because they do a nice job with their labels. But I think if you're in the US and you have an item like this, or even a modern item like this, don't send it to AFA, send it to CAS because they just do a better job with the presentation and the label and things like that. AFA won't mention who signs it. Anyway, this was a beautiful, beautiful example. I mean, crystal clear blister, unpunched, no price sticker. And it was listed for $2,500. It sold for $2,000. That was the best offer that was accepted. Not a price I'd pay, but it's pretty cool. And, not to get morbid here, but we all have an expiration date, right? And a lot of these actors that were featured in the 70s and 80s films, they're unfortunately passing away or have already passed away, and there's not going to be any more of them. And it's just kind of a cool thing to see some of these signature series items, not only the action figures, but also the comic books. And I think if and when I actually start adding to my collection again, I'll probably focus on autographed comics to add to my current comic collection, maybe to display in these vast desert Tatooine shelves behind me that are really empty right now. But it's probably not yet. But I did think it was a beautiful item. I'm not trying to say it's not. And if you got $2,000 to drop, go ahead. I mean, I'm not trying to disparage you. I'm just saying I personally would not pay that. But it was a beautiful, beautiful 21 back Chewbacca signed by Peter Mayhew that did sell at $2,000. Collector Archive Services loose graded this Boba Fett along with the mail away box and paperwork. So it's got the note to consumers, the catalog, the mail away box for the Boba Fett mail away, but the figure was no longer inside the baggie. So it was graded CAS 85+, but keep in mind, that's a loose graded figure, really, that you're buying along with the mail-away paperwork and box. And it was listed for $3,500. Now, if it was still a sealed baggie, I could maybe see it, but I thought this price was too high. It did sell for $3,000. That was the best offer that was accepted on there. Again, not a price I would pay. Is it an awesome display piece? Yes, but I think for $3,000, you can probably get a true mail-away complete with the baggy Boba Fett. The baggy itself is really not that expensive. You can get a baggy Boba Fett ungraded that is the correct baggy for this mail-away for like $400. But the expensive part is the box. That's hard to find in still kind of complete condition like this. But is it a cool display? Absolutely. Is it really great that CAS offers this kind of more affordable display for those of us that can't afford a complete mail away? Yes, but again, $3,000, that's too much. I wouldn't pay that personally, just given what we've seen the sales prices for an actual complete mail away with the baggie. But again, a great display piece. Next up, we've got a couple of 12-inch figures. This was a loose complete Boba Fett with the box and a sliding acrylic case. It was not factory sealed. That sold for $265 in a make an offer situation. The same seller, I believe, same seller also had a factory sealed 12-inch Han Solo. So this one is factory sealed with a sliding acrylic case. That one sold for $760. So obviously the big price difference there is because it's still factory sealed, but pretty cool to see two 12-inch figures sell. Here is that Takara wind-up R2-D2, kind of an oddity that has little legs that move when you wind it up. This is from the Japanese Takara line from 1978. That one sold for $230. We've seen some graded examples of that. along with baggy versions of that graded, but that one did sell for $230. High grade examples, AFA graded, can go $500 to $700 depending on the grade, but just wanted to show that. We had a Land of the Jawas action playset, which I think is really cool. And another HasLab idea. I don't know. I mean, you know, with an actual sand crawler, but to include like a Tatooine landscape along with the escape pod, and maybe pack in the Jawa, R2D2, and C3PO carded on the Vintage Collection card backs. Another HasLab idea. Again, scale is the issue for the sand crawler that we've talked about. You know, to get a properly scaled sand crawler based on the Wikipedia data, it would be absolutely massive and price prohibitive. But just thinking outside the box for the next HasLab, given the lukewarm reception of the LAT gunship. But anyway, this vintage example of the Land of the Jawas action playset, which I really like. I think it was a very affordable way to do it, and the 3D effects of the Jawa Sandcrawler cardboard backdrop I just thought were very innovative given the price and size constraints at the time. So that one sold for $140, and again, it included the box. We have the Death Star Space Station, including the Dianoga Trash Monster, the trash, which, as you can see, is starting to degrade pretty badly. The instruction sheet is also in there. That one sold for $280. We had a Snowspeeder mint on card, the diecast Snowspeeder. Obviously, the card was a little bit tatty, still a clear-ish blister. It was listed for $435. The sales price was $390, probably in about a 70 grade at best, but great box art or card art on that one. We had a Cloud City playset. Now, this one was graded, apparently, from CAS, and I was trying to find the information. It was still factory sealed there, so you can see that there. Empire Strikes Back Cloud City playset, still factory sealed. It's got the red label CAS 75+. That one did sell for 1,750 pounds, which equates to about 2,300 US dollars, which honestly, that's not a terrible deal given that it's still factory sealed. Love the box art on this. That is just a beautiful box art. So very rare to see one of those factory sealed and graded on eBay. That's not usually something that pops up. I wanted to point that one out. We had some Last 17 figures that sold, loose complete, some of them with card back. This one had the coin and the card back. It was for Han Solo Carbonite and sold for $225. I've got some more in a second, but I also did have this department store 3-pack that included Jabba's Denizens and Goons. We've got Klaatu, Weequay, and the Alcoholic Accountant. Sounds very familiar for the Alcoholic Accountant relative to AFG circa 2015. That is basically what I was. So Reese is known to be an alcoholic. He's got those big puffy hands, blotchy face. I've been there, brother. I've been there. There is a better way, Reese. There is a better way. Take it from me. Anyway, I'll shut up. I'm sorry. But this is a cool 3-pack. So it included the box, the catalog, and then the ESBH unlabeled baggies, and then for Klaatu and Reese, and then I forgot which baggie variation that is for Weequay. But that set did sell. It was listed for $540. The best offer accepted was $490. Whoever bought that, that's a good candidate to send in to get graded. Really nice one. Some other loose complete figures. We've got not loose. This one's the only one that's not loose complete, of course. But this is a 65A Luke Jedi with the blue saber. He's missing the Palace Blaster, easily replaceable, but the figure itself was minty mint. Very, very nice. That one sold for $127.50. And we also had Warwick, Last 17. This one had some chipping to the figure. A lot of chipping, actually. Still sold for $177.50. People do not zoom in on these figures. Look how rough this one is. So that was for Toy Scout. Toy Scout also had this Ramba with the card back. That one sold for $107.50. And then we, just to contrast it, I wanted to show you a mint on card Ramba, $220 for that one. So that's interesting that a loose complete Ramba with card back sold for $107.50, but you can get one still factory sealed and in really good shape for about $100 more, $110 more. So that to me feels like a better value. Next up, a very rough but still carded R2-D2 pop-up lightsaber with the coin. Obviously, it's still carded, but you can see how rough. Well, I don't know what's going on there at the top, but it's like it's peeling away or something. But anyway, that one just still sold at $875. The figure itself is in really clean condition, and that's really where the value is, right? It's just a very clean R2-D2 pop-up with. It doesn't look like it has any yellowing to the figure there. I mean, or to the sticker. It may be very faint yellowing, not much though. But that's really what someone's paying for there. And then we had a mint on card Luke Stormtrooper on the Power of the Force card. That one was listed for about $1,200. The best offer accepted was $1,050. $1,050 on that one. Pretty clean card. Maybe an 80 grade if you're lucky. I don't know what's going on with that blister. Something, it looked like it had an overheated seal on the right-hand side where it's starting to kind of bubble there. That's a very common defect for some of these very oddly shaped card backs. Lando Skiff with the helmet, Boosh with the helmet. Oftentimes you get these weird defects where when it was sealed, it just causes these ripplings around the helmet. So just something to note, but I still think it's probably a 75 plus or maybe even a low 80 grade. But that one did sell at $1,050. Some other items, we had a TIE Interceptor, 100% complete, that sold for $170. Pretty clean looking example there. We had the one-man sand skimmer from the Power of the Force line. That's a very expensive mini rig. That one sold for $165, which is about the going rate. Usually, you know, if someone said, hey, what's a nice looking sand skimmer go for just out of the box? Or the Imperial Sniper. The Imperial Sniper is a little more expensive, usually closer to $200, but the sand skimmer almost always goes right around $170, at least lately. And then lastly, I wanted to show you this beautiful Sice From. It is complete with the robe and in pretty clean condition there. And that's one of the least expensive ones I've seen recently for Sice From. It wasn't perfect. He had some rubs around the face there. Looks like he's been eating too much or something, but he's got some kind of weird stuff around his chin there. And he's in a bad mood. Man, that frown is... Turn that frown upside down, mister. There's nothing to be upset about. But it sold for $725, which I don't think is a terrible deal. We've seen some this year, loose complete, go for like $1,100, which is way too much to spend. But I would say if you can, try to get $600 to $650 for Sice From at the top end. But $725, I'm not going to dog anybody for paying that. It's just, it's one we haven't seen on the channel here lately. But that one did sell at $725 in a buy it now situation. So that is all I really have for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back soon.